Do you still remember Charmed back in 1998? The Halliwell sisters once enchanted an entire generation. But 27 years later, behind the magic, lie real tragedies, separations, scandals, and deaths that brought fans to tears. Who is still standing at the peak of glory? Who has gone forever? Let us uncover the mysteries and honor the legacies they left behind. This story will leave you astonished. Rebecca Balding as Elise Rothman. In the final seasons of Charmed, Elise Rothman appeared like a breath of fresh air. She was the strict editor-in-chief of the Bay Mirror, and also a special friend and mentor to Phoebe Halliwell. Amid the magic, demons, and supernatural battles, Elise was the anchor to reality, direct, tough, but also full of warmth. Rebecca Balding took on the role at age 53 and remained with the series until 2006. Before Charmed, Balding was notable for the sitcom Soap, 1977, and was even called a Scream Queen in the 1980s thanks to Silent Scream and the Boogans. But that spotlight faded quickly. Hollywood often typecast her into supporting roles, mothers, co-workers, or background characters. Rebecca clashed more than once with producers for refusing unspoken rules, and that firmness caused repeated breaks in her career. Her private life was quiet but full of mystery. She had a marriage lasting over 40 years with producer James L. Conway and 2 daughters. Yet rumors of marital cracks or a child from a past relationship were never confirmed. She chose silence, keeping her privacy until the very end. After leaving Hollywood, Balding lived quietly in suburban California. She opened a small Etsy shop called Becky's Bauble Boutique, selling handmade jewelry. But in the end, tragedy struck late in life. Rebecca quietly battled ovarian cancer, a fight she never widely shared. On July 18, 2022, she passed away at age 73 in Park City, Utah. Shannen Doherty as Prue Halliwell. When Charmed premiered in 1998, Shannen Doherty was only 27, stepping into the role of Prue Halliwell, the strong, intelligent, yet deeply vulnerable eldest sister of the Halliwell family. With the power of telekinesis and later astral projection, Prue became the cornerstone of the Power of Three. Shannen didn't stop at acting. She also tried her hand at directing, leaving her creative mark on the first 3 seasons. But that spotlight was overshadowed by behind-the-scenes conflicts. Rumors of heated clashes with Alyssa Milano spread, and after season 3, Shannen left Charmed amid controversy. Fans were stunned, asking, "Can Charmed still be charmed without Prue?" From then on, the eldest sister became the greatest symbol of loss in the series. Before Charmed, Shannen had already achieved global fame as Brenda Walsh in Beverly Hills, 90210, an icon of 90s youth. Yet with fame came scandal, a bad girl image, and endless drama that tied her name to both admiration and infamy. Perhaps that's why Prue on screen became a haunting reflection of Shannen's real life. In her personal life, she went through 3 failed marriages, lawsuits, financial scandals, and countless tabloid headlines. But in the end, the greatest tragedy of fate arrived. In 2015, Shannen publicly revealed her battle with breast cancer. She once overcame it, but the disease returned, spreading to her bones and brain, turning everything into a race for survival. On July 13, 2024, Shannen Doherty passed away in Malibu at the age of 53. All of Hollywood mourned her, and fans kept one memory alive: Prue standing tall, raising her hand against demons, just like Shannen, who fought until her very last breath. Alyssa Milano as Phoebe Halliwell. In the late 90s, at just 25 years old, Alyssa Milano stepped into Charmed and immediately captured attention with her role as Phoebe Halliwell. The youngest Halliwell sister was both seductive and rebellious, with the gift of premonition that made the trio's destiny even more dramatic. With her fiery, high-energy performance, Milano became the youthful soul of the series. Fame exploded, but so did the undercurrents. On set, she was rumored to have severe conflicts with Shannen Doherty, tensions so intense that Doherty left the series after season 3. That departure created a crack not only within the production, but also in the fandom itself, turning Phoebe versus Prue into a media battle that lasted for decades. It wasn't until 2021 that Milano publicly admitted she also played a part in that tension. Off-screen, she continued to make headlines. As one of the prominent figures who helped spread the hashtag #MeToo movement, Milano was hailed as a pioneering voice while also criticized for controversial political statements. On social media, she frequently engaged in heated debates, blending light and shadow in her public image. Still, Alyssa Milano never disappeared. She continued to appear in Insatiable and Brazen, while also producing content, writing books, and running the podcast Sorry Not Sorry. Today, at 52, she still holds her unique appeal, with an estimated net worth of $10 million, much of it coming from royalties from Charmed, Who's the Boss, real estate in Los Angeles, and media projects. Haney as Aunt Gail Altman. In Season 2 of Charmed, audiences met Aunt Gail Altman, a seemingly kind aunt who secretly harbored an alliance with dark forces. The character appeared only briefly in 2000, when Haney was already 65, but it was enough to leave an odd impression. A familiar face of grandmother and mother roles suddenly transformed into a betrayer in the world of magic. Haney was a familiar presence in the 1990s Hollywood. She made audiences laugh in Mrs. Doubtfire, appear stern in Liar Liar, and even showed up in the Psycho remake, 1998. Before that, Haney had traveled a long road, only starting her acting career after turning 40, following the death of her husband and once her daughter was grown. She often joked, "This is life's gift, a wonderful way to enjoy the final third." Yet behind that late but admirable career was a private life filled with pain. Her marriage ended bitterly after her husband's public affair. After the divorce, she rarely spoke of it, but the scars were clear in her later relationships. Her only son also grew distant, leaving Haney's final years quiet and with few close companions. She silently battled heart disease and bouts of depression, but in public, Haney always appeared with a smile and wit. Her interviews were filled with laughter, masking the sorrow few ever knew. No scandals of addiction, no major controversies, yet her privacy and personal wounds made her a figure both warm and mysterious in the eyes of colleagues. On May 26, 2001, just a year after appearing in Charmed, Haney passed away from heart failure in California at the age of 67. She left behind a legacy for audiences, one that carried both laughter and sorrow within the entertainment world. Tyler Christopher as Anton. Anton, the charming yet dangerous warlock tied to Phoebe Halliwell's past life, appeared in just one Charmed episode in 2000. At that time, Tyler Christopher was 28, riding the peak of soap opera fame that had made him one of American television's most recognizable faces. Yet in real life, that same fragility left him vulnerable to personal darkness. He openly battled alcoholism, entering rehab multiple times but never breaking free from the endless cycle of relapse, recovery, and relapse again. In 2019, his arrest after passing out in an Uber from intoxication further shook his already unstable career. Tyler also admitted to suffering from bipolar disorder, though he was never given the proper treatment. His love life was equally turbulent. He had a brief marriage to Eva Longoria, followed by a longer one with Brienne Pedigo, with whom he had 2 children. That too ended in separation, clouded by rumors of abuse. In his later years, Tyler struggled with debt, medical expenses, and a career that no longer resembled his glory days. On October 31, 2023, he died of a heart attack at the age of 50. Tyler's death left sorrow among those who once followed a bright talent on the small screen, only to see him consumed by his own personal tragedies. Billy Drago as Barbas. At 53, Billy Drago joined Charmed as Barbas, the demon of fear. Though he appeared in only 7 episodes from 1999 to 2004, each return sent chills down viewers' spines. With his gaunt face and haunting gaze, Drago transformed what was meant to be a one-off villain into an iconic antagonist who endured across multiple seasons. His career had long been tied to playing villains. From gangster Frank Nitti in The Untouchables, 1987, to the ruthless drug lord in Delta Force 2, Drago became Hollywood's go-to choice for merciless, sinister roles. That distinctiveness made him stand out, yet also locked him inside the villain typecast, leaving him few chances to break out of his dark screen persona. Off-screen, Drago's life carried an air of mystery. Hollywood buzzed with rumors of erratic behavior, even possible drug involvement, though no proof ever surfaced. His secretive personal life only added to the intrigue. He seemed as captivating and unpredictable as the villains he portrayed. His marriage to actress Silvana Gallardo lasted from 1980 until her death in 2012. After that, he all but vanished from public life, living quietly in his California home surrounded by faded posters and old horror film props. On June 24, 2019, Billy Drago died from complications after a stroke at the age of 73. It was a quiet end, yet one that ensured charmed fans and film lovers alike would never forget the icy stare of Barbas, the demon who sowed fear in the hearts of others. Holly Marie Combs as Piper Halliwell. When Charmed premiered in 1998, Holly Marie Combs was only 24. As Piper Halliwell, the middle sister with the power to freeze time, she became the heart of the trio, gentle and warm, yet strong whenever she needed to carry the weight. Fans still remember Piper as a symbol of sacrifice and motherhood, a character who connected audiences to the magical world through sincerity. But behind the camera, things were far from peaceful. Combs publicly sided with Shannen Doherty during the feud with Alyssa Milano. At MegaCon 2024, she once again brought up Doherty's departure from the show, criticizing Milano for denying responsibility, a statement that instantly reignited controversies that had seemed dormant for decades. Her private life also saw many challenges. Her first 2 marriages ended in divorce, first with Brian Travis Smith, 1993 to 1997, then with David Donahoe, 2004 to 2011, with whom she had 3 sons. The divorce from Donahoe was rumored to be tense, centered around custody and finances. By 2019, she remarried Mike Ryan, becoming a stepmother in a blended family, though she still couldn't escape the media's scrutiny. Combs admitted she struggled with the pressures of fame and the responsibilities of single motherhood. After Charmed, she continued to leave her mark with Pretty Little Liars and is now co-host of the podcast The House of Halliwell with Brian Krause and Drew Fuller, a space where she shares behind-the-scenes stories and reconnects with fans. Today, Holly Marie Combs is 51, with an estimated net worth of $14 million. Beyond royalties from Charmed, Picket Fences, and Pretty Little Liars, much of her wealth comes from California real estate and her role as producer starting in Charmed's 5th season. To audiences, she will always remain Piper, the character tied to balance, faith, and love in a world of magic and chaos. Henry Gibson as Sandman. When Charmed aired the Sandman episode in 2003, Henry Gibson was 68. His character was unusual, a fantastical being who planted both sweet dreams and unexplainable anxieties into people's minds. Though a small role, it left viewers remembering the image of a tiny old man with a soft-spoken voice, both kind and unsettling, perfectly matching the sweet yet sharp style Gibson embodied throughout his career. Henry Gibson's name first rang out across America in the late 1960s thanks to the comedy show Laugh-In. He possessed a sharp, witty sense of satire and cemented his place in cinema with his role as the phony country singer in Nashville, 1975, which earned him a Golden Globe nomination. Over decades, he appeared everywhere: Mrs. Doubtfire, The Burbs, Magnolia, and even voiced characters in The Smurfs. It was a long, prolific career, but not without shadows. Gibson was known as talented but difficult. Colleagues recalled times when he acted tough, even deliberately obstructive to maintain his position. His personal life was even more complicated. His marriage collapsed in scandal after multiple affairs, including one secret relationship that lasted decades. When the family fractured, his distance from his children grew, eventually leading to inheritance disputes later on. In 2009, cancer claimed his life at age 73. The media reported it briefly, but for audiences, Gibson's memory remained tied to two extremes: the biting satire of Laugh-In and the gentle unease of the Sandman in Charmed. Frances Bay as old Phoebe Halliwell. In a special 2002 episode of Charmed, viewers saw Phoebe Halliwell in her old age, wise, mischievous, and deeply emotional. The actress behind this vision of the future was none other than Frances Bay, then 83 years old, known as America's grandmother on screen. Her brief appearance served as a mirror of what was to come, leaving a tender yet bittersweet impression on fans of the Halliwell sisters. Bay had long been famous for her charming elderly roles in Happy Days, Seinfeld, and as the beloved grandmother in Happy Gilmore. With her warm smile and petite figure, she won audiences' hearts. Yet her life was scarred by tragedies that never healed. Her only son died young in a car accident, and a separate traffic accident later forced her to have part of her leg amputated. These traumas followed Bay throughout her life, shaping both her career and her family relationships. Behind the scenes, Frances Bay suffered from chronic depression. She often collapsed into despair between takes, only to gather herself and return with her familiar, gentle smile. She had no scandals of addiction or public controversy, but the fragility of her spirit made her later years a lonely struggle, heavily dependent on caregivers. On September 15, 2011, Frances Bay passed away from pneumonia at age 92. The press wrote that she died from illness, but for many, her heart had already been broken long ago, ever since she lost her son. Jeff Corey as council member. Charmed brought in Jeff Corey in 2000 to play a member of the Elders Council when he was already 86 years old. His stern presence, resonant voice, and world-weary eyes gave the scene a unique gravity. Though only a small role, Corey's presence conveyed a strong sense of authority and power within the magical world. But his career had been far from smooth. Jeff Corey was a victim of the McCarthy-era witch hunts. Blacklisted for his political views, he spent nearly a decade exiled from Hollywood in the 1950s. When he returned, Corey not only resumed acting, but also made a name for himself as a highly influential acting teacher. His students included Jack Nicholson, Jane Fonda, and Leonard Nimoy, names that would later shape Hollywood itself. Yet Corey's teaching methods were not without controversy. He was known for being harsh, often pushing students into extreme psychological exercises to force them to touch artistic truth. Many praised his method. Others saw him as authoritarian and cold, driving some to emotional breakdowns. Even his two children publicly criticized him as distant, unloving, and controlling, just like the severe instructor he was in class. In his final years, he lived in near isolation, with only his obsession for the craft and his teaching manuscripts as constant companions. On August 16, 2002, Jeff Corey died from complications after a fall at the age of 88. He left behind a complex legacy, an actor once cast aside for politics, a revered yet resented master teacher, and a man whose brilliance was forever intertwined with cracks in both his family and his soul. Scott Plank as Eric Lohman. In 1999, Charmed introduced viewers to Eric Lohman, a charming professor hiding inner conflicts, played by Scott Plank. At 40, Plank brought to the role the allure of a mentor who was both trustworthy and suspicious, creating an episode fans never forgot. In reality, Plank's career had once shone brightly with opportunities in Melrose Place, Baywatch, and even Broadway. He was part of the original cast of Dreamgirls and had roamed stages big and small with a chorus line. The name Scott Plank seemed destined to carry success across both screen and stage, but behind the spotlight, he often clashed with directors, insisting on too much creative control. Some projects stalled because Plank refused to compromise. Rumors in the industry suggested he had dabbled with stimulants and endured long nights of mental crises that worried friends, though none of it was ever confirmed. His private life was no calmer. Short and toxic relationships often ended in arguments, sometimes even restraining orders. Plank lived quietly in a small Los Angeles apartment, driving his beloved vintage car, trying to maintain some peace amidst the personal chaos. On October 24, 2002, tragedy struck. Plank died in a severe car accident at only 43. Just months later, the film Holes, 2003, in which he played Trout Walker, was released with a final dedication. In loving memory of Scott Plank. David Carradine as Tempest. When David Carradine stepped into the role of Tempest in Charmed in 1999, he was 62. With his tall, lean frame, cold gaze, and gravelly, smoke-tinged voice, he gave the time-controlling demon an unusual authority, slow, deliberate, yet menacing. Though his appearance was brief, Tempest left a lasting impression on fans. Carradine was already a major name since the 1970s with the Kung Fu series, later revived in glory when Quentin Tarantino cast him as Bill in Kill Bill. But his career was never a straight climb upward. He often vanished mysteriously from sets, leaving entire crews bewildered. Rumors of substance abuse and nights of reckless behavior clung tightly to his name. His personal life was even more turbulent than his screen image. 5 marriages, accusations of abuse from former partners, lawsuits over finances, all turned his life into a cycle of chaos. He once owned properties in California and Thailand, living lavishly but spending recklessly. Friends called him Mr. Cool. Yet behind that freedom was a man constantly running from himself. On June 3, 2009, Carradine was found dead in a Bangkok hotel under shocking circumstances. Asphyxiation from autoerotic activity. He was 72. His death instantly dominated headlines, sparking debates about the truth behind the curtain. Some called it an accident. Others believed it reflected his entire life, forever balancing on the edge between artistic freedom and self-destructive darkness. Larry Holden as Jeff Carlton. In Charmed, 1999, the character Jeff Carlton, a man who unintentionally became entangled in the consequences of magic, was portrayed by Larry Holden at the age of 38. Though his appearance was brief, Holden brought a sense of vulnerability and ordinariness to the role, allowing viewers to empathize with him even when his character was only a small part of the larger picture. Beyond Charmed, Holden made his mark through collaborations with director Christopher Nolan. He played Attorney Finch in Batman Begins, 2005, and left a strong impression in Memento, 2000. These supporting roles may not have been flashy, but they carried a sense of steadiness and gravity, making him the kind of connecting thread essential to major works. Yet alongside his talent were darker struggles. He was believed to have suffered from bipolar disorder, though he never spoke about it publicly. His unpredictable moods earned him a reputation for being difficult to work with, leading to his exclusion from several big projects. What began as painkillers for an injury gradually turned into dependency, and this strain contributed to the breakdown of his long-term relationship. In his later years, Holden nearly disappeared from the spotlight, working only on a few independent films he directed himself. On February 13, 2011, Larry Holden died in Massachusetts from cancer at the age of 49. There was no grand funeral. Only a few friends and fans remembered him through the quiet yet trustworthy characters he had embodied. Michael Gilden as Finnegan. In the 2003 season of Charmed, the character Finnegan appeared briefly but left a mark thanks to Michael Gilden's performance. At 41, he gave life to a small character with nuance, reflecting his own journey in Hollywood. Gilden was no stranger to audiences. He had played an Ewok in Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, and appeared in numerous films and television series, from Pulp Fiction to CS1. Despite his solid stage background and versatility, the entertainment industry often confined him to roles mocking his stature. This typecasting was a wound he never truly escaped. Friends described Gilden as strong-willed, unwilling to compromise with the unspoken rules of Hollywood. That integrity helped him maintain his dignity, but also cost him many career opportunities. Rumors circulated that he turned to substances to escape pressure, though nothing was ever confirmed. His personal life was equally tumultuous. His first marriage ended quickly, and he later married actress Meredith Eaton, a relationship full of love, but also conflict. Friends said he often sank into anxiety and fear of being abandoned by the industry. In his small Los Angeles apartment, Gilden grew increasingly isolated, rarely appearing in public. On December 5, 2006, Michael Gilden took his own life. He was only 44. His death came quietly, almost forgotten by Hollywood. But for those who knew him, it was a painful reminder of the brutal cost of loneliness in the entertainment industry. Richard Lynch as Cronin. When Richard Lynch appeared in Charmed in 2003 as Cronin, he was 63 years old. He hardly needed heavy makeup. His scarred face, the result of setting himself on fire during an LSD-induced hallucination in his youth, was already haunting enough. Lynch turned that wound into his artistic trademark, and Cronin, a ruthless demon, became one of the clearest proofs of how he channeled personal tragedy into unforgettable screen presence. Lynch's career was full of contradictions. He won a Saturn Award for his role as the evil King Cromwell in The Sword and the Sorcerer, 1982, and appeared in Invasion USA, Star Trek, The Next Generation, and even Halloween, 2007. But behind those terrifying villain roles, he battled violent outbursts and was dropped from several major projects in the 1990s due to erratic behavior. Filmmakers both admired and feared him. His personal life bore even deeper scars. 2 failed marriages, fractured family relationships, and the death of his son Christopher cast a shadow over his later years. Friends recalled Lynch living reclusively in his California home, surrounded by horror film memorabilia and memories he could never escape. On June 19, 2012, he was found dead from heart failure, his body discovered only days later. He was 72. His lonely, quiet death reflected the cruel paradox of his life. A man whose haunting face the world remembered, yet who departed in silence. William Morgan Sheppard as Merrill. At 71, William Morgan Sheppard surprised audiences in Charmed, 2003, as Merrill, a sly, cold, and dangerous warlock. With little more than his raspy voice and razor-sharp gaze, he convinced viewers that Merrill could manipulate anything from the shadows. Sheppard was already a familiar face in science fiction universes. From Star Trek to Doctor Who to Babylon 5, he became known as an expert at embodying eccentric, unpredictable characters. But the intensity he brought to the screen often carried into real life. He was notorious for rewriting lines to his liking, arguing fiercely with directors, and leaving many crews both impressed and wary. He spent years moving between the US and the UK, balancing work with efforts to avoid tax troubles. Behind the scenes, he was remembered as a masterful performer but also a strong ego, always wanting to run the show. In his later years, he battled cancer yet still attended fan conventions, carrying with him that unmistakable rasping voice fans could identify instantly. On January 6, 2019, William Morgan Sheppard passed away in Los Angeles at the age of 86. He left behind a vast body of film and television work filled with unforgettable roles, though his legacy was also marked by family fractures and a fiery, unyielding personality. Bruce Gray as Elder Keel. In 2005, Bruce Gray appeared in Charmed as Elder Keel, a powerful elder who embodied both dignity and unpredictable contradictions. With nothing more than a piercing look or a deliberate pause in his dialogue, he captured the essence of a figure who stood on the thin line between justice and absolute control. He achieved success in this role at the age of 69. Gray's career stretched across both Canada and the United States. For Canadians, he was best known as Adam Cunningham in Traitors, a role that earned him a Gemini Award. For American audiences, his most familiar image was that of the kind father in My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Beyond that, he made lasting impressions in major series such as Murder, She Wrote, How I Met Your Mother, and Medium. Though respected, Gray was not free from controversy. In the 1990s, a heated conflict with a Canadian director nearly got him blacklisted from several major projects in his home country. Rumors swirled around him: a controlling temper, romantic ties with much younger actresses, none of it ever confirmed, but enough to add another layer of mystery to his persona. He lived quietly, never marrying, and kept his private life almost entirely out of the public eye. Outwardly, he appeared to be a calm, collected artist, but behind the scenes he was a solitary man, quietly accumulating real estate in Los Angeles and Toronto, along with a valuable art collection. In his later years, Bruce Gray battled cancer. He passed away on December 13, 2017 in Los Angeles at the age of 81. His death was quiet, just like the way he withdrew from scandal and noise, but he left behind an empty space in the hearts of audiences. The world of magic may banish demons, but it cannot keep our stars with us forever. Among all these tragedies, whose story breaks your heart the most? Share your thoughts, and let's continue this journey of remembering the stars who once lit up the screen and who touched our lives.